So we have a quorum now, so we're gonna start the meeting at 5:04. Can I get someone to review and accept the agenda to make a motion, please?
Move we accept the agenda.
Okay, Brenda, and someone to second? Needs to be one of you online. There we go. There's Jess. Thank you. All right, all of those that approve the agenda, please signify by saying aye or waving at me since you're all on camera. Thank you. All right, communications with parents, citizens, and staff.
You might introduce that Gina's here,
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
because the people on the camera may not see him.
That's right. So we are here tonight. We are visited tonight by Jean DiLorenzo. I knew. I apologize. He is the Brandon reporter. So he's here tonight to join us. So hopefully he'll learn something and write great things about us. Do you want to introduce yourself and?
Oh, no, that's all right.
Okay.
I'm shy.
No. All right. So communications with parents, citizens, and staff. I understand that Barstow has been communicating with a parent there regarding busing and the lack of bus drivers. So I told Brenda that we would, since busing and transportation is all underneath RNESU, because that's where it starts, that we should have the conversation here. And so, Brenda, would you be willing to go over your communications with him and inform the rest of the board?
Sure. I won't read them all because they're very long and there are several. But the first communication was through the Let's Talk app, concerned that the advertising for bus drivers were not getting results. And so I asked Jean to answer that Let's Talk because it seemed more administrative than board level. And of course, if it were board level, it would be RNESU board rather than Barstow, or it would involve RNESU board. And Jean, would you share your just briefly how you responded to the concerns?
Sure. So I talk with this parent often, and we talked about this particular issue as well, the transportation issue. And I have a written report for the Barstow board that I'll go over in preparation for next week's meeting. I got an update from our HR office. So we advertise in a variety of ways. We put a banner on the buses. We had WCAX cover the banner on the buses. And then we placed the bus in multiple locations along Route 7. Sorry, that was Midwestern. Route 7. We advertise a Drive With Us event to recruit anyone interested in driving. Gina, I can share this with you if you want to list. We advertise on School Spring, which is where retired educators tend to go. Facebook and social media, Front Porch Forum, our website, Rutland Herald, Addison Independent, Brandon Reporter. We also advertise with our own employees and ask them to share the advertisement with their friends and families. This is where we get the most response, actually, is the word of mouth advertising. I include the need in my staff and parent emails. We offer bus driver training to get people certified. We will pay for the license and all certification costs. Because it's a job that is a split shift, where you're working 2 to 2.5 hours in the morning and then 2 to 2.5 hours in the afternoon, for those who are interested in more full-time work, we have combined the position to create a full-time job with the custodial job. And so we have one driver who's in the process of finalizing his licensure who is going to do that, and another driver who has already accepted that. We have 3 drivers also who are paraeducators, and we already had 3 who drive and perform custodial duties. So we try to create, you can choose just the shift job, or we try to create a full-time. We provide competitive wages And we continually look at existing openings and figure out how to creatively assign to meet all vacancies. It's important to note that bus schedules are not done in August and left that way until June. As students move in, for example, we had a student move in at Barstow this year that required transportation to a different school that we had to provide, so we needed to pull a bus driver to do that transportation. That's legally mandated. We've been down one bus driver at Barstow for 2 years. We have a regular substitute at Barstow who doesn't wish to be our employee, just substitute. And we had a bus driver leave us unexpectedly early in the school year. We still are down 2 positions at Barstow, and we only post intermittently at the costly sites because, again, our greatest bang for our buck is the word of mouth. So at the moment, we are not posted on any of the newspapers, but we're continuing the word of mouth. And like I said, we have one in the works right now and another one that we're pursuing. But it's a really difficult job. You know, basically we're asking somebody if they would like to ride a bus with 10 to 30 students on it for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours midday, and in all sorts of weather, and the morning starts very early. They start out at 6 a.m. In all sorts of weather and with kids who don't want to wear masks. And by the way, we have to keep the windows down during COVID, and kids who don't want to sit quietly for the ride. It takes a special person. And we have some really special people who've been with us a long, long time, but we need some more.
I just wanted to point out, and Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, in the emails that you forwarded to me, and one of his major concerns was that we were not advertising on like the Indeed platform and in the papers right now. And so I guess at this point, I mean, from my standpoint, it sounds like you're doing everything you can to get new board members, and that
Bus drivers. I'm
bus
not trying to
drivers.
get new board members.
Oh my goodness, where am I going from? Anyway,
I like my board.
I know, right? You're trying to get new bus drivers, but that you find that print advertising is not as effective as getting our own drivers to help others.
That's correct. It's
Okay.
not as effective as somebody reaching out to their brother or cousin who wants to make a little bit of extra money. In addition, if you're running an ad always in print advertising, it becomes absolutely invisible.
Okay.
So you have to do that one intermittently if you're going to get somebody to pay attention to it.
Okay. So, from my standpoint, I feel that Gina's doing everything that she can in this area. I just want to make sure that we addressed his concern. That was the major concern that I saw from his emails, was that he didn't understand why we weren't putting it in print every week. And I think you've explained yourself, and I'm happy with your explanation. So I just want to make sure everyone else is as well. Yes? Okay.
Thank you for that. I think you've both covered it well. And there are a number of other emails that, because it's a Barstow parent, we are including in the Barstow board packet so that it'll all be on record.
Right. And
the Barstow board will have ample opportunity to read everything. I won't take the time to read all the letters now because they are long. My answers are long, and I don't want to waste everybody's time with all of that. But I appreciate, Jean, I appreciate your explanation. And hopefully we can move forward, and hopefully we'll have a new bus driver soon. And I saw Jessica's hand.
yes, I did too. So Jess, what's going on?
I just wanted to clarify real quick. I know if these wonderful people in the pipeline don't turn out, and is there a certain amount of, after a period of time, you said it was intermittent. So if this doesn't pan out and our current resources aren't panning out, it would be put into something like an Indeed, correct?
Yeah, we're exploring Indeed, and whether there's a cost-benefit analysis that we do in all of them.
Right.
You're not going to lure people from Upper Maine for a bus driver position. Right. That may not be worth your resources. Brandon Reporter Addison Independent, Rutland Herald, people in this area who want a second job or want maybe a full-time job if they want to combine it with other things. That's where you're going to get people. We are looking at Indeed and trying to figure out if that is worth our cost, but that's a question I have. Indeed really is, branches out to the regional area, and this isn't what's going to bring somebody here. And if somebody is moving to the area, and for this type of a position, most often they're looking at the local papers and what's available. And the reason
I understood. I just wanted to
Have me say
clarify
it.
that this wasn't
And-
your only, obviously it would be.
That's correct. And the reason we use School Spring, which is primarily an education platform, is quite often we'll get retired teachers who are looking, and that's where they know to go. So, it's kind of like, for this type of position, you tend to know what your pool is, and that's where you're reaching out. And again, you may recall WCAX did a bid on us in August at the start of the school year, and we had a bus out. We've done this several times, but they did a spread, a clip that actually did net some phone calls for us.
Cool.
So, yep.
Great. Okay, any other communications with parents, citizens, and staff? I'm not seeing anyone else here, so we're gonna move on. Consent agenda, can I get someone to make a motion, please, to accept?
This is Brenda, so moved.
Okay,
Oh, Jessica moved at the same time, so
I'll second
your choice.
perfect, second. All those in favor, wave at me, cause you're all online, so. Alright, thank you, we have a consent agenda approved, thank you. Communications and support to the board, superintendent's report.
Okay, so I'm gonna follow up on that staffing thing for just a second, and talk again about the COVID impacts. I continue to try to let you know the lay of the land, and right now people are tired. One of the things that, there are two things kind of happening right now. We have an increase in cases, just as the whole state does, but particularly since Thanksgiving. Currently, just for your information, we have the entire second grade of Neshabie in quarantine because there were 2 positive cases, and we did test to stay, and it netted 7 more, and 3 adults, and those kids intermingle. So we're doing test to stay, but the whole second grade is out pending test to stay. And then we just got a case in 4th grade and may have a second case in 4th grade. Otter Valley continually, it's almost a daily thing, 1 or 2 cases. And 1 or 2 cases don't sound like a lot, but the impact of 1 or 2 cases is somewhere between 3 and 6 hours of contact tracing and putting another, at Otter Valley, maybe 10 or 15 kids or adults out. We also have some COVID positive staff, even with the vaccine mandate, which did take place starting December 5th. Vaccinated adults are getting sick. So we have a couple of vaccinated adults who tested positive within the last week, and a couple of other adults. The other, and all of that, as you already know, causes more absences in the schools with adults, which causes adults, since we have a shortage of subs, adults are subbing, current staffing is subbing for staff who is out. And that's very exhausting, because they're giving up planning time and doing their work at night and covering for their colleagues. One ray of light, temporary ray of light, is that colleges are now out for winter break or getting out. And so we have some former Otter Valley grads coming back and working for us and during their college break, and we love to have them. So that is relieving stress just a little bit. I recently participated or facilitated a legislative meeting with our local legislators and the Southwest Region Vermont superintendents, and was sharing the staffing concern with the legislators because they needed to understand it as well. I had a conversation with one of the legislators in this meeting who said, absolutely, I understand. In fact, it took me 6 weeks to get my snow tire appointment because maintenance is short staff, and And we know that restaurants are closing down more nights than they used to close down, and retail is cutting shifts and closing at 5 o'clock instead of staying open till 9 o'clock. It's a pervasive problem. And I thought about it, and I thought, yes, it is. And those kids are still coming to school. I don't get to choose that we're only going to teach on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday so that I can spread out my staff. I don't get to choose that we're going to close at 1 o'clock because we don't have enough staff to run from 1 to 3. And I don't want to, I think my point there is that the schools and your business, Becky, are open no matter what. Even short staff, we're open no matter what. And I just really want to shout out kudos to the nurses, the principals, the teachers, the paraeducators, the bus drivers, the custodians, our food service staff, our school secretaries, because we are open no matter what, even if we don't have enough staff to be there. So I just wanted to take a moment on my soapbox and make that point.
Can I respond to that, or
Sure.
just say that, and can I vouch for that, Jean? We've had 6 positive cases, I think now, and it does take 3 to 6 hours to do the whole contact thing. It's unbelievable how much time it takes to fill out all that paperwork and do everything. And my second thing is the ESSER funds and bonuses. Is that something we can talk about too?
Sure. So let me start with the first thing you said too. And that paperwork, the other thing I want to point out is schools, childcare centers, they're really the only ones doing contact tracing. And we're mandated to. But the state really isn't doing much of a job on that anymore, and they're turning to us to do it. When we had 7 kids in one second grade classroom, we called Department of Health and said, is this an outbreak? And they said, we'll get back to you tomorrow. And when they got back to us, they said, we're not really sure. But we had already made our decision on what to do based upon the protocols that were in place. The other thing is that when we tell kids that you're close contact and you need to quarantine, they're out of school, but generally speaking, they're not quarantining after school hours. And so the cases will continue coming in. I can't say if cases are caught in school or out of school, but what I can say is it's pretty clear that, you know, we're the only, childcare and schools are pretty much the only game in town that's even tracking this. And that's exhausting. So your second point about bonuses, et cetera, certainly you can have a conversation about that. There is a school district in the state that did bonuses across the plate, which I don't know. The only thing I can figure is they must have done it out of local money because ESSER doesn't allow that. ESSER does allow bonuses for, or pay, I should say, for COVID-specific work. So last year, I came to the boards and asked you to approve paying vacation time for our year-round employees who did not take their vacation time because of COVID, because they were doing COVID-specific work. And you did that. That's not exactly a bonus, but that was one way that you could use the ESSER funds. So right now, and we are paying, when staff are covering staff, we are paying them for that coverage. In fact, you negotiated it into your last contract, and thank you very much for that. This is the first year we've had that. Nurses who are doing contact tracing on the weekend and at night are eligible to get paid for that overtime work. I'll also say that they don't have the energy to actually sit down and fill out the paperwork to get paid for that work. And that concerns me. I'm kind of, since I'm receiving their texts at 10 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock Saturday morning, I kind of want to go back and say, have we paid anyone yet? Because if not, then we might need to do that differently. Same with principals who are coming in and contact tracing. The other thing about bonuses, if the board wishes to discuss that, I'm torn. I absolutely would love to give some bonuses to folks. And what happens when you don't have money anymore? It's such a tricky thing. It's such a tricky thing. So your ESSER plan and your ESSER funds are fairly well subscribed, planned out for the 3 years, and that plan has been provided to you and is on the website. So you might be looking, at what can you do with local dollars, especially if you have a surplus this year. That might be something to keep in mind.
Does that answer your question, Becky? Okay.
Yeah.
Can I follow up? I just wanted to ask, when do you know about surpluses? If you were
Yeah.
to have a surplus that you could
You
give
take
people
action
a
on your
bonus.
surplus at your June meeting. That's when you take action on it.
I just wanted to say why I was thinking about that is because where I work, same thing, there's less staff in the building, everybody's doing 3 times more than they usually do. People are burned out and wondering, wouldn't it just be easier to stay home? And of course, in order to stay open, no, it's not easier to stay home, please come to work. And it's a way of saying thank you to the people who have stayed.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for Jean's superintendent's report? Nope. Okay. We're going to move on to our executive limitations monitoring reports. Jean has provided us with her monitoring report for 2.5 emergency superintendent succession. So that should all be in your packets.
And it's gone to both boards already.
Right. And I believe we've seen it before on this board, so it's just an update. Does anybody does someone want to make a motion to accept, and then we can discuss if there's any discussion?
I move we accept.
Okay. Is there a second? Oh, there we go. Okay, Jessica's gonna second it. Thank you. All right, any discussion on 2.5, the emergency superintendent succession? So for anybody watching at home, this emergency superintendent succession is something that if something happened to Jean.
If I win the lottery. I don't
Yeah.
like getting hit by a bus, so.
Oh, okay.
If I win
All
the
right.
lottery.
Well, I wasn't gonna say anything like that, but if for some reason Jean's not available, and there's an emergency succession as far as who takes over in her place, so that we're not all scrambling wondering what's going on, so that we have a plan. So, and that plan is well thought out. I won't go through the whole thing because it's very involved, but does anybody have any questions regarding her monitoring report of that process? Hearing none, all of those that approve 2.5 monitoring report signify by saying aye or waving at me because you're all online. Perfect, thank you. And the next one is monitoring report 2.7, compensation and benefits. Again, if we could have someone make a motion to accept.
So moved.
Thank you, Becky. And a second from someone? Barbara, thank you. Anyone want to talk about compensation and benefits? We have seen this one before. So again, it's just an update. And I didn't see anything that was hair raising or,
Nothing changed.
right? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of 2.7 compensation and benefits, please signify by saying aye or waving at me. Perfect. And that one also clears the, oh, I don't have these in front of me. Were you gonna do this? These were the ones you were gonna do differently, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So we're moving on to board management delegation.
that's right. We are.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The first one is board monitoring report 3.3, delegation to the superintendent. We had postponed this from our November meeting, and Jean wanted to try a different approach. So she's using us as guinea pigs.
Right. So the Otter Valley Board really struggles with monitoring the 3.0 and 4.0 policies, the board policies. And so at the last meeting, they had a discussion and asked me as superintendent to basically provide a report, a reasonable interpretation with context for these policies for the board to kind of react to, discuss, and it's really a form of professional development. So I was happy to try it. So you guys are getting it before Otter Valley does, because you happened first and you had 2 of these reports on here. So you have this in your packet, and I start by kind of doing a little bit of PD around policy governance and the importance of the fact that these policies are supposed to be taken as a whole. Even though we pull out 1 or 2 at a time to review, it has to be in the context of the whole. So the 3.0s cover the global board management delegation. And the particular sub-bullets under there are unity of control, which basically says, even shorter than what I wrote, which basically says that the board acts as a whole at the board meeting. So Barbara doesn't act as an individual and Becky doesn't act as an individual. You bring the individual voices to the board discussion, and then ultimately, as a whole, the board makes decisions or gives the superintendent direction, but not individually. The second one is accountability of the superintendent, and it speaks to the fact that the superintendent is the board's link to operations, and that the superintendent is accountable to the board, whereas the staff is accountable to the superintendent, and that the board will not go around the superintendent to tell the staff what to do, because ultimately that can undermine the efficiency of the entire district. And once you do that, you can no longer hold the superintendent accountable because you haven't told the superintendent what it is that you want done. The third section is delegation, and that's the one one of the ones you have tonight, delegation to the superintendent. And that, again, speaks to how the board directs the superintendent through written policies where you have specific results that you want achieved, and policies that provide the limits of what the superintendent can make decisions within under operations. And that with these policies, written policies and written directions, the superintendent has to interpret them, and the board accepts that interpretation as long as it's reasonable, or the board goes back and refines their policy so that it's more clear what it is the board is seeking. And then that section that I just said right there, I said is really the meat of how policy governance works. The board has a vision, the board sets the vision, defines the parameters within which the superintendent has to meet that vision. And if that's not working, then the superintendent is held accountable to a clearly articulated vision and parameters. Which leads to the fourth one, which you're also covering tonight, which is monitoring the superintendent performance, where the superintendent also needs to report out their reasonable interpretation of your policies and provide evidence on whether they are or are not in compliance with the policies. And you may recall that over our years together, I've done both. For example, a couple of, I don't know what a couple of years is during a pandemic. Pre-COVID, I reported to you that in doing one of my monitoring reports on one of your policies, that I discovered, honestly, that we did not have a tight system for maintaining student records. And I reported it to you as a non-compliance with an action plan as to how it would be repaired. It then was repaired, and we have a system now, and that was reported out as completed to you. Another non-compliance that I have reported to you was when the IRS reported to us that when they made the change of dates of when W-4s need to be reported to them, and our office didn't realize that it changed from March to January, we were out of compliance. I reported that to you. I told you the steps that we were taking. We are now in compliance, and in fact, I'll be reporting to the Barstow Board on Monday night that they're completely cleared of all penalties. And so has OB Ben. We're just waiting on the RNESU answer. Or maybe, yeah, that was right. So those are examples of where I say we're not in compliance. Another example was in June of 2020, the boards asked me to go through all of our policies and let them know where COVID is impacting the ability to be in compliance with the parameters you set out. And I had done that, and I'm kind of thinking maybe I need to do an update on that. But that was an extra report that you asked for. So those are examples of how you monitor the superintendent performance. Taken as a whole, therefore, these 3.0 policies describe the parameters within which the board sets the vision and the superintendent oversees the operations to meet that vision, and how the board holds the superintendent accountable to what the board has set as direction. That's my brief overview. You can see the paper one.
Oh, thanks. I was reading it online. So,
I know.
Okay.
So 3.3 and 3.4 are the last
Are the
two
ones that
pages.
we, right, the ones that we are looking at tonight.
Yeah.
And so based on this, what we need to do is make sure that we are following these policies.
And that you agree with what I wrote, or if there are any
Okay.
questions, or, you know, that's my interpretation of your policy, but is that your interpretation of your policy?
Right, okay. So does someone want to make a motion to accept these and then we can discuss?
Actually, I don't think you need to accept this, because this is just,
Okay,
this is just information for you, unless you mean to accept.
well, I mean, we're supposed to be doing something, we're supposed to be doing our own monitoring reports for 3.3 and 3.4.
So it's more, do you agree?
Do we agree with this? And then,
Do you have examples?
and do we have examples? So, what's your pleasure, ladies?
I agree. I like the way Jean explained it. I am wondering, going forward, this language, will we use it kind of as a reference as we go through individual policies or occasional trainings, or what is the long-term? I mean, I really like the overview that you gave us.
I don't know yet.
And I really like what you said about, you know, we usually take them piecemeal, but here it is, the whole thing. You know, it's always good to review them like that. So going forward, will we continue to have the piecemeal self-eval that we do now?
Well, maybe you could, maybe with this in place, maybe this could help with your piecemeal, because I did all of 3.0 as opposed to, partly because as a professional development, the Otter Valley Board asks for context. And you can't really do the context of delegation to superintendent and monitoring performance alone unless you understand how it fits into the larger context. So maybe this is like a baseline document for you, where then you look at it when you're doing 3.3, see if it makes sense to you. You know, I put it, I hope, completely in layman's terms. And if you have any examples, I mean, I could, for example, take what I wrote and put it in that box, in the paperwork you have, and leave examples open, and you could look at that language and see if that works for you. It's just more COVID cases. It's just a question of whether a board wishes to do the work on their own or wish to react to work that's there. I think right now Otter Valley was kind of floundering on how to do it on their own, with not all of the board understanding how the pieces fit together.
Certainly. Okay. Well, thank you for doing it. I like it. I like the overview.
Yeah.
Every time I hear it, I learn something else kind of clicks into place for me.
Yeah, that happens to me when I do it. Yeah, when I do it, actually.
So, as far as what happens tonight for 3.3 and 3.4, do we want to consider this our report and accept it and move on, or do we want them to put this into the text box like we've done in the past, and then come up with examples so that we know that we're actually doing what's we're supposed to be doing?
okay since Jean has just explained it all with accepting it. I could be wrong, but I don't think we'd come up with anything above and beyond what she said. Since it's fresh on our minds, this seems like an adequate activity
Reasonable.
for our self-eval. But that's just my thought.
Okay.
I'm okay with doing the self-eval too, if anybody would like to.
Okay. So are you making a motion to accept? Brenda? Go ahead.
Sure, I move we accept the two 3.3 and 3.4
Okay.
as analyzed by Jean.
All right. Does anyone want to make a second so that we can talk about it? Okay, Barbara's making a second. So any discussion regarding this? What Jean's put forth for us, which is really good. Okay. Since I'm not hearing any discussion, all those in favor of accepting 3.3 and 3.4, Barbara, do you have a question?
Well, it may not be relevant to this,
Okay.
but, I mean, for this board. But I'm wondering, problem solving wise, going to the other board where we might, I mean, I don't know, it's not the work of this board, it's the work of the other board. But looking at how, what we are hearing and understanding could be not understood by individuals who are already not understanding policy governance. Like, is there a way to clarify?
So I think what would be best, and I was thinking about this myself, was that we bring this as the overview, the form that she did on 3.0, all the policies, and then we bring back the text box with her reasonable interpretations in each one, and let them then decide and show the evidence so that they are part of the process. Does that make sense? And so that they understand where this is coming from. Because really, I think that's what OVUU needs to do, to understand policy governance more.
Explain what you mean by them filling it in, like the people on the OV board.
Yeah, they have to come up with the evidence to prove that we've actually done this. Does that make sense?
Sure. Can I be a devil's advocate?
Sure.
So I'm trying to picture, like, let's just say a kid in class who's not interested in the assignment.
Yeah. No, I know.
And how much they will participate in an activity they view as.
Well, so here's the thing that I think we have to think about too, is we got to take a couple steps back. The board requested that we do this, or that Jean take a stab at this. So we bring this, and this is the stab. So now it's time for our board, the OVUU board, to take the next step. And yes, there's always going to be the child that doesn't want to participate. So we'll just move on. But if we can get more people to understand this through this process, I think that's great. And so we need to take baby steps.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Are you okay with that?
Yes.
We're just gonna try it. It's one of those things that you keep trying different things until you find something that works.
Yes. And yes.
Okay.
I see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, I know, but we gotta try it. This is what we asked for. This is what we're gonna do. Okay. So.
Appreciate the effort. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no.
Don't get me wrong. I am like devil's advocate in here.
Well, you're going to be one of those people that knows everything about this and can give examples and be involved and show how wonderful we are, just like Becky, and we're going to show them.
My thought, if I may, and the reason I agreed to do it, and the reason why I wanted to bring it to the other two boards, is this really could be a professional development tool where they get it in advance, and then maybe you do take that one piece out and say, okay, you have Jean's words in front of you. What is, so sum it up.
Right.
Sum it up. What do I write in here? It's right there. She laid it out. So You have the formal language, you have the informal interpretation, sum it up.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna try at the OVUU board. Okay? But as far as our board here, I think we're good. So, I'm ready to, take that vote. So all of those that are, in agreement with 3.3 and 3.4 as done by Jean, please signify by aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to budget review and approval.
Do you want me to pull up the presentation?
No, because I haven't updated it.
Okay. So the presentation is on the board page from your last meeting.
Yep.
So I have good news and a whole bunch of bad news and some no news. So the no news is we have received nothing new from the Agency of Education since we last met. That is unfortunate. Typically, I do have some preliminary equalized pupil numbers by this time, even though they're not finalized, so I can start looking at them to review them, question them, adjust them. We don't even have that. I think they, kind of like me, seem to have lost a week. But we don't have any more information. We also had hoped and expected that usually today, December 15th, we would actually I think it's December 10th, we would receive special education revenue estimates for the EEE block grant, which is really the only one that hasn't changed. And we haven't received that yet either. So it is fair to say that we are fairly level in students. So I am hopeful that there might be a small change in the number. I'm hoping that there is no surprise there. We have seen the EEE block grant remains fairly stable year to year, and if anything may go up a few $1,000s. So I wanted to put together some revenue estimates so you understood where we were looking at in regards to assessments. So I assumed that it would be level. And then I applied the new Act 173 census-based block grant revenue. There's lots of conversation on this because it is actually less than most people are seeing. We are not hurt as big as many people in the state, but we did see a decline of revenues in census block grant. It was compounded with we had a larger fund balance surplus the prior year, which is why surpluses are such a double-edged sword, because you spend them and then you don't have them the next year. So that kind of whammied us as well. But before I jump into revenues, I've kind of shared my no news, that there's a lot I still don't know, and I apologize for that. It's causing me a lot of anxiety, but I don't know what else I can do about it. I did go through our budget again, and the good news is I did find that I had made an error in 2 salary positions that pulled into budget that shouldn't be there. They were open positions. So I removed them, and that means I reduced our budget by $39,761, which means we are now looking at a proposed budget of $10,733,367, which is an increase of 2.75%. So then I did a little happy dance. And then I went into calculating the budget, and that's where all of my no news, good news, and now I'm at the bad news. So when I calculate our assessments, again, I don't know the distribution between Mendon or Barstow and Ovu. I don't expect it to change much because it never does change much. But the assessments, unfortunately, are going up significantly higher, 9.45%. Now, just to remind you that included in the budget is salaries, and as recommended by the board in executive session because 2 contracts are under negotiations. It does also include health insurance under the current arbitration and the new arbitration that just came out last week, or maybe the week before. I think that's why I lost a week, because it came out earlier than it was supposed to.
Yeah, it's in.
And so I think,
Till tomorrow.
yeah, I think that's why I lost a week. Did not hurt us. We were already at the places that they were at, and so, and you'll recall that it affects the second 6 months of the budget. So I did not need to make any changes for that.
My question is that if the whole budget is only going up 2.75%, why are the assessments going up so much higher? Can you explain that?
Yes, so Act 173 changes how revenue is how revenue is paid.
Okay.
So you'll recall, and that's a good thing even though it doesn't feel like one. So you will recall that Act 173 changes from a reimbursement model to a census block grant model. And when they calculate that, and the state has sent out a preliminary version 1, that concerns me a little bit as well, because there are usually multiple versions before they finalize it. But everybody's at the same place I am, so finding errors and things is happening now. Has us losing about $370,000 in revenue.
377?
Yes. $1,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
said,
you said 1,000.
I did?
Yes.
Because nobody cares about $377. We also had a surplus, and that dropped another 170. We still had a surplus, that's the good news, it's just we didn't have as big of a surplus. And then we also had some good news that helped mitigate that. We had a higher surplus in transportation, and that helped bring it down a little bit. But it really is more of a revenues
So we had a
assessment
surplus we
generator.
no longer have, so so we had to make up a surplus.
So an Act 173 is definitely happening because there was some waffling.
I cannot tell you that.
No, we can't tell you that, they have not,
Okay,
it's still on the books to happen, there's still discussions of waffling.
okay.
And there's a lot of people that are doing exactly what I'm doing right now. When I did this preliminarily in October, it was before we built the budget, so I really had nothing to compare it to except last year's actual expenses, and our revenues were likely equal.
Okay.
Which means we should have expected it because our budget went up 2.5%. We should have expected a 2.5% decline. So we're not far off, but this is 9%.
9%, yeah, that's huge.
It's not all Act 173. It's 173 and the lack of fund balances,
Sure.
which is why we hate fund balances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Questions for Brenda? Becky, you look like you might have one. No? Okay. So tonight we do have to approve the RNESU budget in order to move forward with the OVU and Barstow budgets. So at this point, I would take a motion to accept or to approve the budget as proposed. Unless you have another, if someone has a different motion. Don't all jump at once. Okay, Barbara. Yes, are you making the motion to approve the budget of $10,733,367? Okay, and is someone wanting to second that?
Yes.
Okay, Becky went in first, sorry. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all of those that approve, the budget of $10,733,367, please signify by saying aye. And I think we just need to make sure that if Brenda is not present at our own respective district meetings that we explain to our boards the assessment issue between the difference in the increase in the budget and the assessment increase. Okay?
I'll
Okay.
work on a slide for that too.
Okay, thank you.
You know, there was a slide that you were gonna bring up here, though. Just to report out on pre-K. We added that to the slideshow. Wasn't that for this board?
Oh, yes, I was asking about pre-K.
Oh, yeah, that slide's already in there.
Okay.
Right. Can we just pull it up?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
people should
if you
see
wouldn't
it.
mind, I completely forgot about that.
I know.
Thank you.
We added a slide since the last board meeting about the pre-K partnership that you have, because there have been some questions from the community about how.
You're gonna have to go to the Google Drive.
No, I can pull it up from this presentation. I'm amazing, I can do that.
All right.
About how the finances work in that partnership, even though it's several years old now. So we thought we would give an update.
So while she's pulling that up, I would like you guys to tell me, what, I have to write our annual report to the board or to our taxpayers. And so I was hoping you could all give me ideas of what I need to write in that report. What did RNESU do in the last 12 months that we should be reporting out to our taxpayers?
Oh, I disappointed.
I think we should still be talking about COVID, because even though COVID was supposed to be done in August 31st, it is still ever present with us. But I would like to know if there's any other major topics that I should be talking about in respect to the district. We will be talking about the superintendent search, because of course we are going to be saying goodbye to Jean at the end of June, unless she changes her mind. Hint, hint. Okay.
I've been working that angle
I
today.
know. Well, we'll do it from both sides. We might get some leverage. Yeah, Barbara.
Well, I think both boards, RNESU and members of both boards did some equity work. The panel with Judy Dow and the folks from Shelburne. I don't know if that was a Barstow thing or if it was an everybody thing.
It was more of a Barstow thing. I mean, that's where it happened. It didn't happen on the RNESU level.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Otherwise, I'd say, yeah, that's a great idea.
It's a feather in the cap of the district. Thank you, Barstow.
Yes.
It's that funny.
So, yeah.
Anything else from people?
Closing another classes.
We've managed to get kids to school. That's RNESU.
I know, right? Transportation. I can talk about the need for bus drivers. There we go.
But we've been managing to get them
Yes.
to school and back. Maybe it's not ideal, but anyway.
Yeah, that we are managing. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, and so up on the wall is the Whiting Preschool and Child Care Partnership. So
It's not centered, you can't, isn't that weird? You can't see it all.
It's weird. That has to do with,
It's this panel, I can either move it to the side where it blocks half your heading center.
no, it's the whole,
See how it doesn't fit on the screen?
it doesn't fit on the screen. That has to do with the projector, not the screen.
that's
So-
okay. We can.
It's
pretty
not
much-
Jean's fault.
So I can tell you what it says. So in our Whiting Preschool and Child Care Partnership, which is very innovative and forward-thinking of us, we operate pre-K 4 days a week at the Whiting School. Each of those 2 classes are licensed for 16 students so that we can serve a total of 32 3- and 4-year-olds. 00 on October 1st, we had 20 students out of the 32 enrolled. That's low, but COVID has impacted enrollment in pre-K over the last 20 months. Normally, we're pretty fully subscribed.
We're over subscribed.
Yes. So out of those 20 students enrolled, 11 actually are coming from other districts to attend our pre-K program. And this is largely a result of the Child Care Partnership. So these students each generate $3,636 a year in revenue that goes right back into our pre-K. So you're basically coming close to paying for the pre-K program or paying for the costs of running the pre-K program there by bringing in students from other districts who would not otherwise come if it weren't for the fact that there's full day, most likely, that there's full day childcare in the same building. We pay also for our program staff and a school secretary who also serves the district at large by serving as our district sub-coordinator and a food service specialist helping families fill out the free and reduced lunch forms. So the school secretary is based there, but serves the SU as a whole. We cover facility costs necessary to operate our program, including the heat, electricity, internet, phone, grounds. This allows a partnership with ARK Childcare to serve the community at a reduced overhead cost to them. And they cover some of the cleaning costs for their particular program. We do the common hallways in our program. ARK serves, I don't have the numbers, but they serve a large number of kids. They're always full. And by partnering with us, they were able to take a home program, which could serve 6 kids, and turn it into, or 2 home programs at 6 each, and turn it into a full-day childcare program where families could easily move from childcare to pre-K without needing additional transportation or scheduling issues. So it's a service that we're providing by not charging them rent that has increased childcare in the region and has allowed more families to access quality pre-K while not needing to disrupt their childcare programs. It addressed the concern that RNESU had at the time that we were discussing this, where access to quality pre-K is an equity concern to us, because either you're most often a family with means who is able to access a 10-hour program. You either are able to transport your kids, or you're able to figure that out, or well, basically that's what it is. Or you're not, and you don't have a way of getting your kids to a 10-hour pre-K program. So those are the benefits that are in there.
So specifically, the child care center only pays for their staff and some cleaning.
Out of this program. And then, of course, they have program costs that are not listed
Well,
here.
right, okay. Okay.
They pay for their cleaning, yep. And so, for example, they've also had to improve, for licensing, they've had to improve the classrooms a bit. They needed, in order to serve toddlers, they needed to put in air conditioners. That's their cost. Anything that improves the child care program is totally at their cost.
Okay.
And they help support the shared playground as well, because they'll bring in new equipment. We haven't put any new equipment into the playground or anything.
Okay. All right, any questions for Brenda or Jean regarding the ARK Whiting Preschool partnership? Okay, thank you for providing that slide.
Just a reminder, we would love to look at a partnership in the southern end of the district. We haven't done that since we tried pretty extensively a few years ago, but if anyone ever heard of somebody who would be interested, we'd love to chat again.
Yeah, we still would love to. In talking with Building Bright Futures to see if they could help us with this, they indicated that the difference between the Whiting School partnership and what we might offer at Lothrop or Barstow is at Lothrop or Barstow we're offering a classroom, not really a way for somebody to expand significantly. Whereas by partnering and using Whiting School, you were able to take home providers who could expand childcare services in general. And they said that's probably why we're having difficulty getting takers in the south end, because they can't overly expand.
Okay.
Cute Becky.
She's adorable.
Okay, so we've confirmed our board budget already, and we've gotten input. So we're looking for a rep for the para bus driver negotiations committee.
And I'm going to beg here a little bit because first, Brenda currently sits on the committee and so does Becky. And Brenda has announced to the Barstow Board that she will be moving and stepping down on town meeting day. We are about to start the paraeducator bus driver negotiations. That leaves, assuming she'll still do it, Becky and the other person on the teacher one, Jeff Spalding, doesn't do the para bus driver because he's a substitute bus driver, so he steps away. So that leaves Becky and Lisa, and it might be the Otter Valley Board that I need to appeal to more than the RNESU Board, but I do think that you need another board member at the table, or they need another board member at the table. Maybe somebody here wants to jump up and down, besides Becky's granddaughter.
Well, I think if it's starting soon, we can give you food for thought and think about it, but we will need to have a decision by our next meeting.
Yeah, and we'll approach the Otter Valley Board.
Yeah, in the meantime.
Yeah.
Okay, review the annual board work plan. I don't think anything needs to change there. Yes, ma'am? What?
Oh, the board budget and honorariums. That's
Well,
part of the budget
We
discussion.
we confirmed the board budget already, because we did that, so I figure honorariums are honorariums now, because we've already approved the budget.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I'm leaving it alone, but thank you for that. The other thing that I want to bring forth that isn't necessarily on here, and we all know it because we had a meeting on Monday night, was I think it's important that we keep everybody updated with the superintendent search and what the committee is doing. So the committee met on Monday night. We have determined the players in our search committee, which is going to comprise the 6 of us on the RNESU board. The director of CIA, which is curriculum assessment and instruction. The director of special services and the director of finance. Are we also involving Alexis? Director of technology? Okay. And I wanted to make sure of that. And we are also asking our senior principal, who happens to be Deb Alexander from Lothrop, who has wholeheartedly agreed. And we are going to be asking a Barstow teacher, who has yet to be named, I believe, at this point, but should be named shortly. And Melinda Piper, sorry. She is the executive assistant to the superintendent, so yes, she is most important also. So we have also hired a consultant, Elaine Pinkney, from the Vermont School Board Associations. I almost said the visiting nurses. Gosh, I'm tired. And she has been great so far. She's got a timeline for us so that hopefully we will have a new superintendent hired by town meeting day. And in the next 2 weeks, we have our next meeting, January 6th, which we will be having a virtual forum online through Zoom. We'll be sending out the Zoom link for people so that people can tell us their hopes and dreams for the next superintendent and what the next superintendent should have for attributes. We will also be putting out 2 thought exchanges, hopefully next week. For people to participate in, and we are going to be having a PEG TV RNESU spotlight on the superintendent. Hopefully we will be taping that next week so that people will be able to view it during school vacation. Wow, it sounds like we're doing a lot. And hopefully, and we'll also be putting out the actual posting for the job posting by next Thursday.
Or by this Friday.
This Friday, if we could. Yeah.
That's by this Friday.
Okay, so excellent. So all good. So anyway, so just to keep everybody apprised of that, if Barstow, you can let your board know. We will also let OVUU know as we move forward. And there'll be lots of places for people to put in their input and to meet candidates, hopefully, and let us know what you think and what we should be doing. So, anyway,
Maureen, what time is the meeting on the 6th?
It's at 6 p.m.
Virtual.
It's virtual. The virtual thing will start at 6, and then we will have our own meeting afterward at 7. So we'll be doing the virtual Zoom for an hour and then another hour for our meeting to the search committee. Okay? So, any questions regarding that? Okay, so our next meeting is slated for January 19th at 5 p.m. at Lothrop School. Oh, Brenda, yes?
Hey. I'm sorry to back up,
That's
but,
okay.
On the agenda under governance process, we had budget review and approval and then confirm board budget and honorariums. And I guess that second bullet flew by me. And if it's too late to act on it, that's fine. But I did want to say that after reviewing the information in our board packet about board compensation, and as someone who's been a member for 2 years and then a board chair for 2 years, that as a farewell, I really recommend looking at what some of the districts are doing, such as paying 50% additional to the chair, because I can tell you, having done both roles, that being a chair is more than twice as much as being just a member. And I think it's a small drop in the budget to pay one person a few $100s extra, but it's well deserved, and it makes a statement that you recognize that the expectation for the chair is to do a whole lot of work every week in addition to prepare for board meetings.
And I promise you,
That's
I
my
can find a
farewell
little bit of
speech on
extra.
that.
Okay, so if you want to back up and make a motion for whatever you think that motion should be, then we can make an addendum to our board budget.
I move that you change the board chair's compensation to 50%, to an additional 50% of what the other board members get.
Okay, and are you making any kind of motion for the honorarium that RNESU gets already? Which is what, $600?
Yes.
So currently so what you're saying is that all board members would get 600 and that the chair would receive 900. Yes, okay? Okay. So someone needs to second your motion. Barbara is seconding the motion. Okay, anyone want to talk about that? Okay, so all those in favor of changing the honorarium so that the chair receives an additional 50%, so instead of 100, they would receive 300 on this board, please signify by saying aye. Okay, looks like the chair's got a lot of nice people on their board. Thank you. Okay, so does that mean that we need to add $200 to our?
300.
No, it's
200.
200 because there's already $100 on the
Oh, yeah, no, I can
Small
find
numbers.
it.
small
somewhere.
numbers. Small numbers.
I can find it
You can
somewhere.
find it. Okay. All right, then we have approved our number. So
Pay your new superintendent $200 less.
yeah, that's right. There we go.
Exactly.
So, so then we will see everybody on Wednesday, January 19th, probably sooner because we're going to be in the middle of a superintendent search. And have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.